I'm Al McFarland. Welcome to the conversation with Al McFarland. I'm glad to be here. I'm glad to have you along. Today is Friday, November 17th. And if it's Friday, it's the Healing Circle. And we get together every Friday to talk about health and healing in our community, in our families, in our world. And today is no exception. Pleased to have this. I want to, as I have in the past couple of shows, make reference to the healing challenge in my own family right now. And I say this both as an invitation, a request for feelings, thoughts, empathy, encouragement. That today and tomorrow we celebrate the transition of one of my grandsons who lost his life recently due to an overdose. And so it just tells you that the problem of drug use and drug abuse is real, it's present, it's all over, and any of us and all of us can be and are affected by it. And we simply need to figure out how we continue to promote healthiness, health and well-being. And that's kind of what we're doing today, is talking about health and well-being, mental health, talking about legacy as well, how families demonstrate and reflect the legacy of engagement, of healing, of prosperity over generations. Before I get into the program, I want to invite those who are listening to do two things. One is support this program by going to YouTube Insight News MN and becoming a subscriber. If you subscribe, we grow our listener viewer base. Our goal is to monetize the channel by getting into the thousands. We've just crossed the 500 subscriber threshold. We're targeting 1,000 SAP, and then we'll target 2, 3, 4, 5, etc. That's the way we're going to do this and grow this engagement, this audience. Why is it important? I believe that it's important for us to raise our voices and to share our voices, our thoughts, our feelings, our aspirations with each other locally and globally, to recognize that technology that we're using today lets us be together. If we're in Tanzania, if we're in London, if we're in South Texas, San Diego, anywhere in the country, anywhere on the planet, we can be together and we can do things together. We can collaborate. And that collaboration is, in a sense, the growth of a new network, a new film, a new skin of interconnectedness that I think can grow our authenticity and grow a new human being. That's what I'm getting to. Well, let me stop there and bring in my guest, my co-host, my partner, Dr. Bravada Garrett Akinsanya. She's the CEO of the African American Child Wellness Institute. Dr. B, we call her with fondness, Queen B, call her that. Sister, so good to see you. How you doing?
I'm doing very well this afternoon. How are you, my brother?
I'm okay. I'm actually okay. I'm in a moment, in a space of peace. And again, focusing on my family, my daughter and her son, my grandson, and the transition as a young person becoming an ancestor. So, but I'm okay.
Yeah.
I'm okay. I did my therapy this morning. I have therapy. Thanks to Dr. B, I do therapy every Friday morning with one of Dr. B's therapists, and I've been doing that for 2 years. So I'm telling you, it's changing my life. And I say it to invite Black men in particular, Black people in general, to take advantage of the knowledge, the healing, the hand that will guide you to yourself, to your best self, and guide you to being healthy. And so I testify whenever I can, and I invite people to engage resources like Dr. B and like Dr. Oliver and others in the profession, because we have healers among us, and we can become healers in the process.
Yes,
Dr. B, let me turn this over to you and ask you to talk about the protocol for the program, and then I'll introduce our guest.
Okay, I'm very happy, and I'm happy for the plug to get brothers, especially Black men, into seeking support so they can gain the knowledge they need and the skill they need and the loving place they need to be able to grow and change and be the best of themselves. So I always appreciate your stigma busting announcements and an advertisement for people to get their mental health hookup. So thank you so much for that. This afternoon, and as we do every Friday, when we get together, it's a good time. We laugh, we cry, we learn, we grow in this sacred space called the Healing Circle. And in the way we set it up is that if we were in an African tribal unit, and now as Africans in the diaspora, we see ourselves in circle. And although it's a virtual circle, it holds the power of being in conversation in a space that's a circle. And the reason we hold that image in our heads and hearts is because in the circle, there's equal power. There's no up or down or bottom or top. Everyone has equal access to the center, which is the place of power or the place of voice. So we see ourselves in gathering in a virtual circle. In addition to that circle, we honor the shoulders that we stand on. So we first honor our elders on whose shoulders we directly stand. And then we honor our elders because they have sacrificed, hoped, and dreamed our way to existence. And from our elders, we honor our ancestors. And we honor our ancestors because they are closest to our creator. So as we engage in this sacred ritual of African-centered wellness, we see ourselves in an orderly way, in an orderly fashion, honoring the strength of our culture. And one of the most wonderful parts of this experience is the sharing voice using the virtual talking stick. So we have a talking stick and we imagine we pass it to one another. And the way it's set up is the talking stick can always be used by the person who's holding it, or you can ask for the stick if you have something burning that you need to say, or otherwise it would pass in order to the next person in the circle. So today I say welcome to our listeners and the people who join us each week for this powerful experience. And I pass the talking stick to Baba Al McFarland. There you go, my brother. You got the stick.
Thank you, Dr. B, and I have it, and I thank you so much. Well, this is going to be a great program. I call these robust conversations, and I just want to set up and introduce our two special guests, as well as bring in our co-collaborator, the inimitable Dr. Oliver Williams. But today, two things, two streams, and we want to connect them, weave them together. Second, I'm going to pass the talking stick to Dr. Oliver to introduce the first of these two gentlemen that I'm going to speak to. The second of the two is a person I'm working with. He's a senior donor advisor at Greater Twin Cities United Way. I'm on the board of the organization. He's also a member of 100 Black Men of America and a board member of North Point Health and Wellness, where I go for medical care, among other places. And he's also an assistant football coach at Park Center High School. Well, guess what? He's also a sixth generation Black farmer. He grows corn and soybeans. He's been farming since 1864. He, meaning his family, has owned farmland since 1864. He's a graduate of the University of Iowa and has been living in Minneapolis since '89, but he goes back and forth to Iowa to do the farm work. We're going to have that conversation in a few minutes. He'll be joining us. And also today, we have the honor of Brother Dominique Waltower. And he's a violence prevention advocate, a dynamic motivational speaker who's presented nationally, internationally, about his journey through domestic violence. He talks about being a victim as a child, becoming abusive as an adult, and what was necessary for him to not only change his behavior, but to change his thinking about abuse. He talks about a difficult topic with candidness and sensitivity, so that they promote thought, understanding, introspection. This is going to be a great conversation. I'm going to stop there and hand the talking stick to Dr. Oliver Williams, who's connected with Brother Dominic. And Dr. Oliver, here's the talking stick.
Thank you, Brother Al. How you doing?
I'm well.
That's good. Good to see you again. And Mr. Waltower, Dominique Waltower, is a brother that I had the opportunity to meet and listen to him tell his story. But if you want to hear him tell his story in his own words, you can go to Will the digit two. So will to change, not TWO, not TOO, not TO. The digit two, will2change.org. And you can hear Dominique tell his story about transitions, but also you can hear his ex-wife tell the story, her story, in relationship to him. But in addition to that, you hear her tell her story about transitioning. And, I wouldn't recommend every man that had a history of violence that you would pay attention to what they had to say. But Dominique is very, very different. He has a lot of wisdom. But in addition to that, in talking to Mary, his ex-wife, she tells as she tells her story, one of the things that she said, I said, well, how do you know he changed? He said when he started doing what he said he was going to do, you could start to trust what he had to say and follow through with it. And then they have had an interesting experience with one another, but they raise these children. So when you look at Dominique and you look at Mary, they don't look old enough to have children as old as they are. But they have a 31-year-old, they have a 26-year-old, and they have a 22-year-old. And I've met the young men, and they're pretty amazing too. And we've all presented at conferences. We presented at a conference in San Diego this past August. It was, and it was pretty wonderful. And so we will learn a lot. So what I want to do is to uh, mind the wisdom of Dominique in terms of his not only his transitions, but his thoughts about being a parent and how do you become a parent uh, when violence has occurred in the family. He's got a lot of wisdom associated with that. So that's what I want us to center on. And we have that story also on will2change.org where he's telling the story and it has pictures of his kids when they were little. And but sharing his wisdom with that. So with that, let's bring in Dominique Waltower. Hey, brother man.
Thank you, Dr. Oliver and Dr. Bravada, and thank you, Al, as well. Thank you all for having me here. I really appreciate this platform. I appreciate that wonderful introduction that you all gave, and I am extremely grateful to be here. Any opportunity, especially in this space, to with our people is extremely important for me because I do understand the gravity of these conversations and what they mean. And what you talked about, sir, Al, you mentioned therapy. I'm going to talk about that as well because that's a very, very underutilized tool in our community. So I'm glad. I was happy to hear you mention that.
Well, let's do a couple things. I want to start out with you talking about the wisdom that you had. Again, I don't recommend uh, um, the idea of uh, promoting uh, men with a history of violence getting back together with their partner or even uh, dealing with that because a lot of men that with a history of violence haven't overcome and they haven't resolved it. They haven't put in the work. But I know Dominique has,
Mhm.
and he's very reflective of himself. And I know what's interesting to me is the fact that there was a video out that a friend of mine put out called "Sister, I'm Sorry." And I told him, I said, I struggle with the title. Even though I thought the video was good, I struggle with the title. And because women hear men say that all the time, I'm sorry. I promise not to do it again. When they don't know how not to do it again. But if you're someone like Dominique is presented in Australia. He's been in the military. He's working with another organization and reaching out to colleges around the country. He's got a domestic violence program in the county and in the city of San Diego. And this brother, he talks the talk, but he walks the walk. So, and we had a chance to talk about the work that he's done in terms of dealing with a father engaging with their children. And he talked about all the work that he did. Among the things that I get tickled about every time I hear it is the fact that he says, well, Oliver, I had to have my children when they were old enough. They had to give me and my ex-wife a Yelp review. I said, a Yelp review. So what do you mean? He said, I had to ask them how we were as parents. And so he said that they ended up saying, you and mom sucked. But the thing that was interesting to me is he said that he had to prepare himself to be able to hear everything that they had to say, not get upset, but he had to prepare himself to be able to hear. So don't ask the question if you don't want the answer. And so he had to prepare himself to be able to hear the answer, but also engage with his children associated with that. So that's part of the wisdom. I'll have him share other things that he did, but that tickles me every time I hear it. And I thought it was so wise. So Dominique, share with us, first of all, your process of change.
That process of change started much like Al mentioned with the therapy. It was going to counseling and therapy. So for those that don't know, I grew up in a very toxic and abusive home, and without understanding or knowing what that was, that became a normalized behavior for me. So then as an adult, I became abusive myself. And so throughout two adult relationships, I had a girlfriend, and then when that ended, my eventual wife, we got together and then continued that cycle. And once our relationship ended, I really took a hard look at myself. And so when I looked at myself, I did not like what I saw. And so I didn't have the luxury of denial at that time. I had enough negative activity to where I had to be able to look in the mirror. I had been arrested, my family was gone, and I had to really look in the mirror. And so at that point in time, the process of change, as you're talking about, Dr. O, was I decided I needed to go to therapy, and I needed to go and figure out how I got to this place of just turmoil and chaos in my life. And so starting therapy, I said I'll go for a few months, but I ended up going for almost 3.5 years. And it was the best thing I've ever done in my life. And so that therapy was a combination of individual counseling. It was group counseling. It was men's only counseling. It was co-ed counseling. I also had I had religious counseling. I had secular counseling. So it was a 3.5 years of a lot of different places. Each one led me to the next one. And the reason I went was because I was hungry to be a better version of myself. I didn't know that a better version of myself existed, but I knew that better version existed, if that makes sense. I had no idea who this person was, but I just knew it was there. And I knew I couldn't continue being the person that I was. And so I went about this journey of just discovering myself. I went to the University of Me, as I call it. I have a PhD in me. Like that's like I studied me. I studied my family. I studied the history. I studied cultural history, like what's normal, normalized behavior. And it was such a phenomenal experience. And I wasn't so focused on, because at the time as I was going to therapy, my ex-wife and I were going through a divorce. And so I wasn't so focused on the divorce or the relationship or the kids. I was just focused on me. And I said, I need to get better because I can't be anything to my kids. I can't be anything to my future relationship if I'm not whole, if I'm not okay. So all of my focus was on me, and I made up my mind, and I said throughout the divorce, I'm just going to be as respectful as I can, and I'm going to stay in character. I'm not going to lose myself. And that was tested too. As you know, divorce is an ugly process sometimes, especially when we got to court and she said she wanted full custody. And I said, no, you're not. And I remember at being in therapy that day, and or the day before, in my therapist, we had talked about something I wanted in my life. And I said, I wanted peace. And he said, well, you have to do things that promote peace. And I remember being in court that day, and then it was getting ugly. And I remember starting having these really negative feelings. And I just said, I need to let go of this. And I have this policy. I have a personal policy. Anything that I hold on to that is causing me to be a lesser version of myself, I will let go of that thing. I will let go of it. Doesn't matter what relationship, kids, money, job, anything. If it causes me to be a lesser version of myself, I'm letting go of it. So I let go of custody that day. And then, the courtroom was silent because they had never seen that. And the reason I let go is because I wanted health more than the power game struggle of the kids. I would still see my kids. It wasn't going to be an issue. But that process of change allowed me to even let go of that and hold on to peace. And that was the focus for me, to hold on to peace, hold on to love and gratitude and guidance. And so, it's funny because my ex-wife thought that I was going to commit suicide after I did that. She walked up to me after I was going to my car, and she says, hey, are you okay? And I was like, yeah, I'm fine. Why are you talking to me like that? But she thought that I was going to commit suicide because I was letting go. But she didn't understand that I was letting go. I was letting go of that to hold on to peace. So just to land this plane, Dr. Oliver, that process of transition included a lot of, like you said, reflection, a lot of therapy, a lot of alone time, a lot of repair, and when I say repair, I mean creating a new schematic for how I'm supposed to be around my children, with my ex-wife, with my future relationships. So it was a lot of creativity and a lot of building, and again, it was a very difficult process, but I would never change that. Hands down, would never change it. I'm grateful for it.
Well, one of the shifting a little bit, how did you get so wise with regard to becoming a father? Not becoming a father, reintroducing yourself as a changed man and a nonviolent man with your children.
I understood the depths of the damage that I caused. When I was going through my counseling and my journey, I understood the ACEs, the adverse childhood experiences that I had gone through. And then I realized I was perpetrating that on my children. And so that was something for me that was just eye-opening. And then at the end of the day, we all love our children. So I said, okay, well, love is a verb. It's an action word. So why am I not doing the things that show love? Because I was doing the opposite. And so now, after going through throughout my healing journey, love became my focus, and said, well, how do I love them better? And the best way that I could love them was being a better version of myself. And so when I became a better version of myself, I went back to all of them, and I had conversations with them individually and collectively. And then they've all said to me at different times, like, Pop, you've changed, like, you're different, you're not the same, which, I took that as, a compliment. I was never expecting it, because I wasn't doing it for them, Dr. O. I was doing it because it was right to do. And it just like the negativity and violence trickled onto them, the love, gratitude, and positivity trickled onto them the same way. And so they just started seeing it. I didn't set out to, hey, I'm going to win the hearts and minds of my kids and my ex-wife. I didn't do that. I just said, listen, this is what's right. I'm going to just do what's right. And the chips will fall where they're made. And so that's what ended up happening. And it was important, though, for me to create a different environment for them than I had before, because I had created an environment that instilled fear in them. They were afraid of me. They were afraid of me. So I had to stop the fear and then operate in a space of love. And I was able to create that with them to where they could come to me when they were ready. It wasn't, hey, well, you got to respect your dad. You got to, no. Hey, I'm here when you're ready. If you guys want to talk about that, you want to come to therapy with me, you want to do this, that's fine. That was another thing too. They watched me go through this process. They watched me transform. And so then they could see, oh, he's safe now. They've always loved me, but they didn't always trust me. So now they could equate the love and the trust. They're like, oh, I love him and I can trust him now. And so then they would come to now they come to me all the time. We could talk about anything, but I wanted more than anything else for them to see a different father. I felt like they deserved better than that. And I said, okay, well, I'm going to set out and I'm going to be that. And it wasn't just talk. It was, okay, I'm going to show you different. I want you to see different. So that was pretty much my motivation. I wanted them to see that. And in this journey, it didn't allow for room. It didn't allow any spaces to not be love. Every space, the space with my ex-wife, the space with my new relationship, the space, with my children, the space with my family, everything in my life was permeated with love and gratitude. So it was natural that it would be with my sons.
Well,
let me ask you, Brother Dominic. So what would you say was there before you discovered the ability to place love at the center? How would you describe that space that the love now occupies? What was that space before?
That space before was, it was fear. It was confusion, uncertainty. It was a lack of self-awareness. It was me. It was the tradition. I was in the tradition of my family. And it was not, I love my family. It's not a knock against them, but we had some toxic behaviors. So that was the space before. And all of those things, had to be replaced. So I set about the business of replacing each one of those with love, with gratitude, with care, with even how I discipline my children was different. It's like, no, my discipline has to be filtered through love. If it's just discipline, no, I need to make sure this goes through love first before I say anything to them. And because before I wouldn't do that, so it definitely replaced those areas, but those were areas that, mainly fear. I lived in a lot of fear. I was very deathly afraid of anything new. I was not confident. I was not, I didn't have a sense of myself. And so when that love space was created, it gave me a sense of myself. I had a sense of self-awareness, and I started to love among everyone else. The most interesting part about this is I started to love me. That was an unexpected piece. I did not expect that. And now I practice radical self-love. I am a radical self-lover. It is my duty to love me first. And that just trickles on to everyone else.
Well, the thing that I wanted you to tell the one story about not punishing your one son because he didn't do the dishes.
Skip, yeah.
So tell that story.
So Skip, my son, he's 22 now, but he was 16 at the time. So I'm going to work, and I'm like, hey, Skip, make sure you clean the kitchen. Now, this is after the divorce, and then after the divorce, ironically enough, my son was like, hey, Pop, I want to come live with you. Okay, you talk to your mom? Fine. So he came to live with me, and so when he came to live with me, I made sure to establish a home where we respected each other, where I respect him as a human being. He automatically is going to respect me. It was just respect. And so one day, I'm going to work, and I was like, all right, Skip, make sure you clean the kitchen. Okay, Pop. He's out of school. He's in this video game world, living his best life with his buddies online. So I go to work, long day at work. It's raining. I'm in traffic. It's a long day, 12-hour day. Get back home. I'm tired. Get back home. The kitchen's not clean. So I walk in, and immediately I'm upset. I'm like, dude, I told you to clean this kitchen. Like, what the heck happened? And then I said to myself, wait a minute. How do I address this to where he's not going to need therapy later from this discipline? I need to make sure that my son does not need therapy from this incident. And that's because I was upset. And I said, you know what? I'm going to go take a shower. I'm going to take a shower. So I went to take a shower and I was strategizing as I'm in the shower. How am I going to address this? I'm like, he's being disrespectful. He's this. And I was like, wait a minute, hold on, calm down, And then after getting out the shower, put my clothes on. And by the time I got to go talk to him, all I did was open his door and say, hey, Skip, I told you to clean the kitchen, right? Oh, I'm sorry, Pop. He jumps up and goes and cleans the kitchen. So in that moment, I didn't say anything else. I didn't have to say anything else. He had a moment. And I always say his credit score was good anyway. He got a 720. He usually takes care of business, But even if his score was lower, I still had protocol to love him through his mistakes. And so I wanted to make sure that even though he makes mistakes, it's included in the love package that I have for you. So I'm not going to turn on you because you do something wrong or you have a human moment. He's a 16-year-old kid. He's playing video games all day with his friends. Hey, have fun. Okay, you forgot to do something. Okay, go do it now. And he did it. His punishment was he couldn't get online for the rest of the day, which he readily accepted. He was like, okay, I understand. And I was like, all right, you can get on tomorrow. But it wasn't. The point of that was for me to make sure that I'm disciplining him, or even when I'm disappointed in him, I am not becoming abusive, because a lot of times that's where a lot of abuse will happen, is when they don't live up to our expectations. So be it spouse, or that's where a lot of abuse happened in my relationship, where I caused the abuse. Even sometimes on my ex too, when someone doesn't meet my expectation, then I gave myself carte blanche to just go, off the top ropes. And that's not okay. So that in that moment, what you're talking about, Dr. Oliver, that was a moment where I made sure, I said, I'm not going to traumatize my kids anymore, any way, shape, or form. I'm not doing that. I don't care if they mess up. I'm going to figure out a way to discipline them in love. And so by the time we got done with that conversation, we're laughing and joking about it. We're laughing and joking about his punishment. He's like, well, I was like, that's, he's like, what would you do? What would you suggest? He's like, no, it's fair. It's fair. I was like, okay, cool. All right. Well, you can get back on tomorrow.
Brother Dominique, I love what you just said. That is a master class in parenting, because what you just taught us is, one, sometimes parents need a timeout.
Yeah.
Right? We need a timeout so we can regroup and not come out just angry as what we feel when we start. So you actually gave yourself a cooling off period. But more importantly, I want to ask you, not just for you, but for the people who will be listening and seeing this video. When you went in there and you knew the man that came in the door wasn't the man that you wanted to show to your kids, and you gave yourself to go back to the bathroom and shower, chill out, calm down, rediscover the real you, and you presented that was your representative, was the real you when you came to your son. Now, this is what I want to ask you. How did that feel for you? How did it feel? Because I want people to hear not just what you did, but how did it feel inside?
It felt like freedom, because I was in control of myself. It was freedom. It felt like love, because I was loving on my son. I was intentionally loving on him in a difficult moment. I was teaching a class on base yesterday, and I was asking this question: what is your protocol when they don't live up to your expectation? Does that include you tearing them down? Do you abusing them, and then saying, well, you should have did better? Okay, well, yeah, of course they should have did better. But you know what? Where's the grace? Where's the grace? Where's the love?
Dominique, when you say protocol, describe what you mean by protocol.
So when I say protocol, what is your, we all have policy at our jobs. We have policy, whatever we're doing, and we have protocol. If this happens, then this is what you do. So what is your personal protocol for when your children don't meet your expectations, when they don't get all A's, when they do mess up, when they do end up in a relationship that you may not approve of, or when they don't do the things or go into the career field that you want them to go to? And so for me, what I've learned throughout that process is that I have this motto, this mantra that I live by. It's like, okay, well, how do I love them through this? How do I
Let me
love
take
him
a
through
break.
that? That literally is my story.
Let me take a break, and we'll come back. I want to bring in Todd Western, and we'll continue the
Okay.
conversation. I'm Al McFarland. This is The Conversation with Al McFarland. It's Friday. It's the Healing Circle. We'll see you in a minute. Are you or someone you know recovering financially from the COVID-19 pandemic, the lockdown, or any other reason? If so, help is available. Findhelp.org is a site to find a wide range of resources, including food, medical care, and more. The best part is based on your zip code. Visit findhelp.org, enter your zip code and the service you need. You'll get a map directing you to the organizations that can help you. Help is waiting at findhelp.org. If you need help starting anew, findhelp.org is the site for you. We're back. This makes this show good because we're going to weave some things together here. And we talked about family. Todd Weston and I talked a little while back, and we talked about his great grand, I think, being a farmer buying land coming out of slavery and the family acquiring land. I think it's a fascinating story, but the story includes this power of transmitting legacy across generations. Todd, good afternoon. Welcome to the conversation.
Welcome. Thank you.
Thank you for being here. Talk about your story, about how your family came to be in the farming business and what it's meant to you and where you are now.
Well, thank you for this opportunity to talk about farming, especially Black farming. As we know, farming today is, 1944, 12% of the farmers were people of color. Today, it's less than 1.4%. And, although that is sad, I'm proud to represent that 1.4, which is why I try to go on shows like this to promote farming in general and Black farming in specifically. My story started like most farmers, especially down south. My family started in 1790 in Aberdeen, Virginia. He bought his way out of slavery, worked for the slave. It was Sergeant Anderson, and he bought his way out of slavery. Then went to work with his son, and then worked enough to go back and buy his wife and 3 children out of slavery. Once he bought them out of slavery, one of the 3 children died of a disease that you could probably survive today. So now he has 2 children. And so at that point, they make the trek across the country. They stop in Ohio, in Lorain, Ohio, which is part of the Underground Railroad process where they process people out west. They make it to Ohio. Then they settle in Iowa. I don't know why they settled in Iowa, but they settled in Iowa. So imagine now, you first of all, you make it across the country. Now you settle in Iowa. Then you have the audacity, because you remember, this is 1863 when they probably settled. So now you have the audacity to say, I'm going to actually buy land. Now, I also like to say, Iowa is a very friendly state, as a Quaker state. So it's part of the Underground Railroad. So God be the glory that they met a lot of angels, I call them, that helped them navigate the system. And so they were able to buy an 80-acre tract of land, and then had the audacity again to buy another 80 acres. So they had 160 acres plus 12 acres of timber that would supply the farm to building homes, to feeding, for fire and warmth and things of that nature. So they had 160 acres. Now at that time, that was my lineage. The cousins and the brothers, they also bought 300, 400, 500. So between all the Westerns at one point in 1864, we owned 1,500 acres. And so today I'm proud to say that, it's still in the family name. We are actively in that business down there. I think the rest of them kind of rented out for cash crop, but we still actively farm it. So at that point, things are going well. My father's born. He's the only boy of 3 sisters. And so, he goes off to the military. He comes back. He wants to farm. He works at John Deere. So 1966, he's working at John Deere in Waterloo, Iowa. At that point, the riots happened in Waterloo. So you talk about resilience and persistence. So 1966, riots happened in Waterloo. Meanwhile, my grandfather, he's farming the farm. And so my father became the first Black supervisor at John Deere, which is a big deal at John Deere. So he worked 41 years at John Deere as an engineer supervisor, a process engineer. My mother was the first Black cheerleader at Proviso East in Chicago. So I come from a lot of firsts. I come from a lot of resiliency. And so growing up, that's all I knew. And so everything's going well. My father's having a great career at John Deere. My mother, she's a school teacher. She had majored in music. So then she has the audacity to be an opera singer. So my mother's an opera singer. She sings on the weekends. So at one point I could be in school clothes, farm clothes, or in a suit in an opera house, listen to my mom sing opera. My mom was one of the first to get a scholarship, of a person of color scholarship to sing in New York, in the Met, I believe. And so in the scholarship program out there, so she's singing opera out in New York, Iowa, all over the place. And so things are going well. Well, then my grandfather passed away in 1974. So now we have a farm in Waterloo, Iowa, and now we have the family farm in New Sharon, Iowa, which is 2 hours away. So then once again, my father, we have the audacity to say, you know what, we're going to farm both. So at some point we farmed both. So we farmed a farm up in Waterloo, and then we load up the semi, we load up all the equipment, go 2 hours down, farm the farm in New Sharon. And so that was great because I got a week out of school every year to do that. So that was a great undertaking. Again, building that family bond, building that family resiliency, and more important, letting you know that there was no boundaries, there's no limitations. As my mother always says, you still got to produce. You still have to produce. No matter what the situation is, you still have to produce. So, so now we're farming the farm back and forth. And then that kind of gets to be a bit much at the time. So we rent that out and we still farm the farm in Waterloo. So things are going well. And then, tragedy strikes in 2008. My father passes away in a bicycle accident because at the time he was training for the Chicago Marathon. So my father runs the Chicago Marathon every year. He was training for his 13th Chicago Marathon. Now he wasn't a blaze runner. He just did it just to stay in shape and prove that he could do it. And so every year he's running the Chicago Marathon. And the last 2 years, I'm happy to say he did it at 4 hours. When he first started, he was at 4:30, 4:45. So the last two, he was doing it in 4 hours. And so he's on his way to train for that, and unexpectedly had a bicycle accident. And now that you want to talk about resiliency and coming together, that will bring you together. So in 2008, it was July. It was a week before his birthday, 9 months before he's supposed to retire from John Deere at 40. And so at the time, you're like, okay, my father was the biggest caveman, big, rough and tough guy you could ever meet. And for him to go out in a bicycle accident, it just didn't sit well. He was supposed to die either of natural causes on a farm or John Deere, not on a stupid bicycle. So that left a bad taste in our mouth. So in 2008 in July, after the funeral, whatever, about literally like 3 weeks later, me and my brother and my mom look at each other like, holy crap, we still got a crop in the field that we have to get out because we're so enamored with the process we're going through. We have to figure out, we got to get this out. So at that point, okay, now what did Dad do again? What did he put this to? What did he do here? So we banded together, my mom, me and my brother, and we banded together, and fortunately my brother Chris, who's still in Waterloo, he really listens. He got the mechanical side from my father, so he knew how to fix things. I'm on the business side and strategy side. So we got together and we got the crop out, and so things are going, we getting things going. And about 3 or 4 years after we get through everything, now we're really starting to cook, and now we're really starting to bond. So now everybody starts to get into their role. So my mom, we call her the CEO. So she got, so by the way, during that process, right before my father, she got a doctorate. So she got a doctorate because she was bored. She's like, I'm not going to sit in Waterloo and Iowa and be bored, because she's from Chicago. So she's used to hustle and bustle. So she's like, okay, I got to do something else. So I'm teaching, I got to get a doctorate. So she goes and gets a doctorate. And so now she's got a doctorate. And so she's a CEO. And so me and my brother, we work the land. We're doing our deal. So she takes a strategy role. And so now she's working with the NRCS, FSA, USDA. And now she's strategizing how we can make this farm more efficient, how we can get more profitability out of it, and how we can make sure that we establish this farm as a part of history. And so, long story short, what she did was there's a lot of things that we don't know as Black farmers because those programs aren't widely available to us because they're not broadcast to us. They're broadcast in a different circle. So my mom, being from Chicago, all 5'4" of her, she walks 8 foot tall, right? So she walks into those areas and she says, she represents, she said, we have a farm and this is what we need to do. And so she was blessed with a lot of angels around her. And so I'm happy to say today that we are running, we are running very lean, very efficient, and we're productive. And so because of that, the next chapter, I always call these chapters. So then the next chapter is my son Todd the fourth, and there is a Todd the fifth. He's 18 months old. So it's Todd 3, 4, and 5. And so my son, he was really close to my father. And so he really took it to heart that he was gone. So he started looking into farms. And so he started sending me these YouTube videos on Black farms and the tragedies that they go through. And I was not aware. And one thing I know about farmers, we just farm. We stay focused and we don't worry about what's black, white, the other. We just farm. So my son brought in the fact that we have a special piece of land here. And it's gone through a lot since 1864. And then Black farmers in our situation, when somebody dies, all of a sudden now the banker comes knocking at the door and said, hey, that loan that predatory loan that we gave your father, now it's due. That grain that was supposed to be done last week that we didn't tell you guys about, now you missed that deadline, so now you don't get the best prices. So because of that, we then took even more pride in the farm, and now we're trying to uplift the farm, not only our farm, but all Black farmers, to say, we are here. We are part of this 1.4%. And so, then my son gets involved. He starts his own farm business here in Minneapolis. It's called Freedom Farms. So Freedom Farms is designed to flood the food deserts of Minneapolis metro area with good sustainable food that's culturally sensitive to the people in the community. So for example, he grows not only fruits and vegetables, but the specialty crop that he grows is microgreens. So who knew microgreens were a thing? All I know is corn and soybeans and wheat. That's all I know. So he's growing microgreens, which is a very popular thing. So this latest chapter is now, we have the Western Farms since 1864, and then we have Freedom Farms, which is my son Todd the fourth doing microgreens, and now he provides microgreens for one of the top restaurants in Minneapolis, and so I'm happy to say that he's doing that, and it's been a great journey. And then the icing on that cake is I get the opportunity to work with I work for United Way, and we do our best to address food deserts as well. And so we have our food insecurity programs. It's a major initiative where we work with partners that supply support and services for farmers in the metro area to grow culturally sensitive food to organizations that will help the North Minneapolis community and other communities have food that's relevant to them, not bland foods here and there, which is important. But wouldn't it be nice that we can have relevant, sensitive food for the people of the community? And so United Way does a lot of work with our partners in the community to make that happen, especially on Capitol Hill, where we do a lot of advocacy to make it part of the SNAP program so that they are all able to get good, solid food, healthy food that's sensitive to their culture.
This is absolutely amazing. What I'm hearing is a story acknowledging the chain of life, the food chain, the business chain, the legacy chain, the responsibility to hold on to something that was evaporating from 12% down to 1%. And but for the people like the Westerns, that will continue to shrink. But with you and your family, you've taken on the mission to raise awareness, to tell the story, and also to reinvent, to allow our people to reinvent ourselves and our genius as farmers as well. And so what I want to do for the balance of the program is try to create this connection about reinvention. Dominique talked about reinventing himself, finding his true self, right? And you were talking about reinventing and finding the true definition of who we are as a people through the lived experience of your generational story. A man who bought his freedom out of slavery and went back and bought his wife and kids, right? And then generation after generation bought land and grew. And here you are with the Todd the fifth now, Todd the fifth on the horizon.
Yeah.
Urban pioneers, almost pioneering in the city with farming for the new what do you call it? The new generation, I guess, the new dispensation. I think it's powerful. Let me pass the talking stick back to Dominique, first of all, just to, as you listen, Brother Dominique, what thoughts are in your mind? And I wanted Todd to say, as you listen, what thoughts came to your mind in terms of our shared stories and experience? Core of it being regeneration, renewal. Dominique, I'll pass
I'm extremely impressed, and thank you for sharing that, Todd. Like the one thing that I kept hearing was the audacity. The audacity. Like your mom. He said your mom went and got a PhD because she was bored. Like, and it was. So to me, that is a powerful point. The audacity to believe that you can have and do better in spite of the circumstances around you, to me. So that resonates with me in a powerful way. And because because you're 1.4% in a we all know how our country operates, with us. It's nothing new. So it takes a level of audacity to pave a way, to push through. And so to me, that is something that is extremely good to hear. It's resonating with me right now. The audacity of your family, like for you guys to just say, yes, forget the odds, forget this, forget that. We're going to move forward no matter what. You said even with the tragedies, and unfortunately, when your father passed away, rest in peace to him. The audacity to keep going, the audacity to recreate. So I'm that part is just, that's on me. That's going to be on me for the rest of the week. Like I have to take that and do something with that energy because I have it now. I mean, I already have my own, but I got some from you. I just want you to know that.
I appreciate that.
And Todd, if reflections, thoughts, as you were listening to Dominique's powerful testimony, what was going in your mind in terms of, again, your own assessment of this lineage? And
because my parents were the first to do a lot of things, and they did 8 things a day a piece. So today I'm doing everything all day, every day, right? So in addition to working at United Way, one of the other things I do is I'm heavily involved in the community. So I'm part of the 100 Black Men of America. It's a national mentoring organization based around the country. And so we just started our chapter here in 2020. And I also work at Park Center High School as a football coach. So those go hand in hand. And so what I'm hearing is, as you hear Dominique as a youth, we have those youth in my football program. And he helped me understand what I'm doing and our coaching staff is doing under the leadership of Jordan Salas, is that we coach through love. We coach through tough love, right? And so one of the things that a football player and the kids that we mentor through the 100 Black Men, they have fear, they have confusion, they have self-awareness issue, and it all leads to lack of confidence. So when you have all 4 of those, and then you tell them, I need you to push the limits of yourself on this football field, or when we're with the 100 Black Men, I need you to open your ideas to the fact that you can do more, and you can think about farming. You can think about being an urban farmer. You can think about being a dentist, a scientist. But when that fear kicks in, it's flight. And through flight becomes anger. And through anger becomes destruction. And through destruction becomes a lost life. So that's why it's very important that, the work that Dominique does, the work that the 100 Black Men does, the work that coaches do all over the world, whether it's football, basketball, or soccer, coaches are very, very important in this equation to get these students to understand, I hear you. And like you say, I really love the fact you said, Dominic, that and I'm going to use this, for my kids when I coach them, there is a better version of yourself that exists. I know you're not good at home. I know you might be getting bullied at school. I know you don't have the latest fashion trends. You may not be big as the next kid, but there is a better version of you. If you just come along with me on this journey, I can help you. Um, and then then once we get their attention, is like you said, make sure, student, when you're out and about, do things that promote peace, as you said, Dominique. And I love that too. So a better version of yourself, do things that promote peace. Those are things that, we're going to try to incorporate even more and we're trying to do at 100 Black Men through our mentoring program, because we have the junior academy that we have at the Jimmy Lee Center on Saturdays, and where we have 12 individuals, and each month we have a different subject that we teach them. Like next month, we have one of our gentlemen that's in the 100 Black Men that's in the military. He's coming in teaching about military, the dress, the code, the whole work. So again, this all kind of works together.
Let's pass the talking stick back to Dr. Oliver and then Dr. B.
Yeah.
Todd, I was curious, what did your mother get her PhD in?
She got her degree in, the work was in, she studied at what point in a youth are your vocal cords able to transition to be able to sing.
It was a music.
Related into statistical theory of music relevance. Way beyond my head. So she would work with children and she would study it to say, okay, her thesis was on at what point does a child's vocal cords develop to be able to teach them to sing, and then using that statistically, so something like that.
Wow.
Very good. Wow. And my sister was a contralto.
Okay.
So I understand.
My mom was a soprano.
Wow. Okay.
And my mom was an alto.
There you go. We should all get together.
And a teacher and a singer, professional singer.
I never got to singing, so I've been a drummer all my life. So I've been a drummer at Wayman AME for the last 30 years.
Oh, wow.
There we go. Mike B is online. Mike is asking you, Todd, how can Black farmers benefit from interacting with the Department of Agriculture? What's the status?
I will say this. The number one thing is that the climate has changed and I would tell people is because of George Floyd, the awareness is there. The USDA, the NRCS, the government agencies are now taking better note of Black farmers in general, but making sure that Black farmers are part of the bigger picture. It's not just one pool of farmers that they address. So things have gotten a lot better as it relates to program accessibility through visibility for Black farmers.
All right, thank you. Dr. B, I'm going to pass the talking stick to you to wrap it up. We're out of time. Like I said, it's going to go fast, and it has flown. A wonderful conversation. And before I leave, thank you, Brother Todd. Thank you, Brother Dominic. And thank you, as always, Dr. Oliver. I'm passing the talking stick for you, to you, Dr. B, to wrap it up.
It's going to be difficult to wrap it up because I'm sitting among brilliance. And this day has just warmed. I'm going to tell you, as a Black woman, being surrounded by this kind of Black brother power, I am only 5'1", so I was excited your mom was short like me, but I feel 6 feet tall because I'm so proud of what I see that we can carry on. And the overarching feeling for me is that you are reflecting the divinity in you. Mm-hmm. And that divinity surpasses fear, anxiety, less thanness. It makes you powerful because you are from powerful. And the second lesson is intentionality. You brothers talked about being your best self, bringing your A game on purpose up in here. So I feel like I'm having church. I'm having Black Women's Day. I'm having Celebrate the Brothers Day. And with that, I say thank you because a lot of healing comes from this experience today. Thank you for joining us at the Healing Circle. drop the mic.
Bye-bye. All right.
Thank you so much.
Bye-bye.
We'll see you next.